Please stand. Almighty God, we pray that your blessing be upon this council. Help and prosper its work for the advancement and benefit of its people, so that peace and happiness, unity and justice may be established amongst us all. Amen. Manningham Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people as the traditional owners of lands and waterways. It is now known as Manningham. Council pays respects to elders past, present and emerging, and values the ongoing contribution to enrich and appreciate the cultural heritage of Manningham. Council acknowledges and respects Australia's First Peoples as the traditional owners of lands and waterways across the country and encourages reconciliation between all. Manningham Council also would like to acknowledge the contribution made to Manningham over the years by people of diverse backgrounds and cultures. I welcome all members of the public who have joined us in person and online to observe tonight's proceedings. To ensure the safety of those present in the chamber, our meeting is being held tonight in accordance with current state government health guidelines. I'd like to advise those present at tonight's meeting, this is being audio and video recorded. All care will be taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. By remaining in the gallery, it is assumed your consent is given in the event that your voice or image is broadcast. As with all council meetings, we are taking questions from the public and encourage you to submit your question in accordance to our normal practice. As we transition back to in-person meetings, we will continue to take questions from members of the public who do not feel comfortable in attending the meeting in person. In these circumstances, our CEO will read out the question. Where we have the information in hand, the response will be provided at tonight's meeting. If we're unable to provide a meaningful response, we will take your question on notice and provide a response in writing. We will deal with a maximum of 2 questions per person and 2 questions on any one issue. If you have more than 2 questions, please submit these additional questions in writing through the normal channels. Council meetings are conducted in accordance with our governance rules. I will introduce each item of business as listed on the agenda by calling it by number and by reading the title. When I call for a mover and a seconder of a motion on the item before opening the debate, only councillors are able to join in the debate on an item. Councillors may adopt the officer's recommendation in the report or propose amendments or supplementary motions. Item number 2, apologies and requests for leave of absence. Mr. CEO, we have received any apologies?
Madam Mayor, I received apologies for tonight's meeting from Councillor Diamante and Councillor Goff.
Thank you. Item number 3, prior notification of conflict of interest. No prior notification of conflict of interest have been received. Councillors, would anyone like to give notice of a conflict of interest? Item number 4, confirmation of minutes. Do I have a mover? Councillor Chen.
I move that the council meeting minutes held on the 23rd November 2021 be confirmed.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lightbody. Councillor Chen?
No.
I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? Unanimously passed. Item number 5, presentations. There are no presentations. Item number 6, petitions. 6.1, petition requesting double lines and no parking on the south side of Fairway Road, Doncaster, Tullamore Road. That's Tullamore Ward. I have a mover. Councillor May, Laura May.
I move the petition with 16 signatories, President Manningham, requesting no lines in the road and no parking on the south side of Fairway Road between Patch Street and Doncaster be received and referred through the appropriate officer for consideration.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Chen. Councillor Moore. Nothing to add. Councillor Chen. Okay, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? Unanimously carried. Thank you. Item 6.2, petition flooding from Williamson's Road, Reserve, Ruffy Ward. Do I have a mover? Councillor Stephen May.
I move the petition with 12 signatories from the residents of Manningham requesting the facilitation of meetings with senior department and departmental officers if necessary to enable a comprehensive understanding of Williamson's Road Reserve area and the physical mechanisms which have over time given rise to progressive damage of neighbourhood properties downslope from an open, unformed and unmaintained stormwater drainage channel be received and referred through to the appropriate officer for consideration.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Conlon. Councillor Stephen May.
Thank you, Mayor. So just some brief history on this petition. I know that the lead petitioner, Brian Ford, was hoping to speak briefly tonight, and I really believe that is not possible. So I just want to briefly summarise the issue. So the main body of the petition is a very comprehensive 500-word petition going into 14 different areas, ranging from governance to project planning to engineering, drainage, safety, a very policy heavy summary, and then the 12 petitioners are requesting 5 specific things, and I will read these into the record. First one is a comprehensive open exchange of information relating to Williamson's Road Reserve design, construction and maintenance. Second one is a comprehensive review of the above and below ground drainage system within Williamson's Road Reserve extending slope down. 3, the comprehensive geological assessment of slope damage for this area, well-known and reported for carrying highly reactive soils. 4, a comprehensive review of technical design and maintenance standards for drainage systems located above downslope assets. And 5, acknowledgement of the adverse impact on resident safety, amenity, mental health with delayed action by officers. So the history here is that Brian first contacted his ward councillor, Councillor Diamante. Councillor Diamante and I met with the officers to receive a briefing on the long history of this matter, which has been looked at by insurers on multiple occasions in the past. We then did a visit to Brian and Peter's property at 24 Olympus Drive and inspected the property. And then in terms of what would happen next, there was a suggestion that talk to the neighbours and potentially bring a petition. And Brian, as the lead petitioner, has been incredibly diligent in pursuing that task. And there's even a 9-page addendum today, very comprehensively spelling out all history, all the issues, and all the policies. So I'm certainly not going to get into who's right, who's wrong, and who's to blame. But I'd like to thank Brian for taking the trouble to do this. It's on the record, as we're hearing it. It's been read to the record. It'll be in the minutes, and it will be forwarded to the appropriate officers for a response. So thank you for your efforts. I appreciate and understand the stress that the impact on the property that's been caused. I know it's a long history, and we're now on the petition journey, and without making any promises, we'll see where that takes us.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen May. Councillor Collins.
Nothing yet.
Anybody else? I'll put that to a vote. Those in favour? Unanimously carried. Item 7, public question time. We have received a couple of questions for tonight's council meeting. At this time, anyone submitting questions to council will not need to be in attendance and can have their questions read out by our CEO. Our first question tonight is from Mr. Jim Stopwood.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll read the questions out together because they're both related. Are councillor, CEO and senior leadership team aware of the cost to use the Slide Aqua Arena, now having an additional $5 charge for its use by each and every person attending the facility? This now means that it will affect each and every child and teenager in being left out to use the slides if they are not financially able to do so. Since we are now coming out of lockdowns, it is now even more important to give back to the community and allow for the use of the slides at no cost. Second question is, are councillors through the CEO and senior leadership team able to look into this issue and remove this additional cost of $5 on top of entering Aqua Arena and allow for all residents to enjoy the pool slides since this facility was built and paid for by ratepayers and to be used at cost on when the redevelopment was completed?
Okay, I'll refer those two questions to Ms. Rochelle Quattracci, Director of City Services.
Thank you, Mayor.
There you are.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Mr.
Christopoulos.
Thank you. Yes, we are aware of the additional charge to use the water slide. The use of the water slide at Aqua Arena includes an additional charge for use to that of general swim entry. Due to the need to cover the additional costs for lifeguards and supervisory staff to operate the water slide and to meet the required health and safety standards during its operation. This has been in place for some time now, and it has a period of duration as well. It's not a one-off slide. There is also some other programs that we offer our community, including during the summer season. We have other events that include the splash park and the inflatable water play, depending on weather, for a range of user groups that is at no extra charge and visitors all. And during these school holidays, there will be a school holiday program run at the centre which families can access and care for. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. And we've received another question from the public. Mr. CEO? Is that now?
Mr. Cook's questions, everyone can invite him up to ask their question.
Mr. Cole? Ask a question? Yeah, let's right here.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Brian Cork. I'm Manningham resident for 35 years. I'm here to highlight a dire situation with serious consequences for possible serious consequences for City of Manningham councillors and administrators. 4 years ago, December 2017, a major storm flooded my daughter's home in a way never seen in the preceding 48 years since construction. In February 2018, city officials inspected the property damage and surrounding area, agreed to existence of functional drainage defects in the Williamson's Road Reserve. Work eventually done 4 months later was cosmetic only and with no technical assessment of existing risks for damage and property protection, raising many questions about governance, frontline investigative reporting and resolution processes. City administrators were made fully aware of this serious safety risk but took no effective action, suggesting operational disregard for compliance with duty standards and statutes. Time now doesn't allow full detail of what has been discovered. Enough to say many photographs taken, review of government documents, standards and technical guidelines highlight acts and omissions which led to this unsafe situation. Regarding this, we seek in-depth discussion with relevant senior department heads and rectification of damage caused to properties.
30 seconds.
The approach taken by the City of Manningham failing to investigate and communicate has caused significant unnecessary stress. It is critically important to note City of Manningham's approach to risk management is inconsistent with performance criteria defined by the International Standard on Risk Management, ISO 31000.
Thank you, Mr. Cork. That's your 2 minutes. Did you have a question too? Just one question?
The question's gone here, but we answered at this meeting, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Cork. Okay. Officers will respond to Mr. Cork. in due course. Thank you. Items number 8, admission of urgent business. There are no items of urgent business. Item number 9, planning permit applications. There are no planning applications. Item number 10, city planning and community. Item 10.1, community partnerships grant. Do I have a mover? Councillor Conlon.
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to move for the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Laura May. Councillor Conlon.
Well, this is a first actually for this council to consider community partnership grants according to this policy, which was actually adopted in August 2020, and consequently we had a delay in terms of implementing that to make sure that we align our policy, or the outcomes actually of the policy, with the council plan. And as a result of all that and fantastic work by our officers, councillors will note that we've had an oversubscription, a significant oversubscription to our grant offering this particular round, and that's a good sign for our community. And so you'll notice that I think there's the first time in my time on council that officers have recommended a significant increase in our budget over the next 4 years to cater for these extra subscriptions. Unfortunately, not all applicants were successful, but I do know there's a number of successful applicants there that are really targeting, addressing the most needy in our community. The number of food programs for those in need, and along with a variety of other purposes that our grant program was set up to address. So, councillors, I do endorse this. I note that the in-kind support for the approximately $3.8 million that we're investing is about $12.3 million, about 4-to-1 ratio, or in terms of what those partners are contributing towards the programs that they're implementing. But it's not just the financial, multiplier we're getting here. We're getting a significant benefit to the community through a number of volunteers giving their time and making a real difference in their local communities. So I do endorse this, and I do thank particularly the officers for their significant work in terms of the work as of the panel of coming up with recommendations, but also the officers who have assisted the applicants in terms of getting to the point of being able to make a proper application. So I do endorse it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor May.
Thank you, Mayor. Anyone for the council of council committees, these rates for any community group or not-for-profit municipality, the recommendations have exceeded our budget of $600,000 per year to $748,827, $778, and $781 over the next 12 years from 2022 to 2025, which is great to see. And the policy goes aligned with our council plan and health and wellbeing strategy key action areas. There was an oversubscription. There was an increase of 135% to the number of applications, so it's great to see more demand for the program like this. We're getting 5 new organisations, so it's great to see we're branching out. Of the organisations that were successful, there were, of course, some of our regulars, Doncaster, Kevin Road, Member, Community Houses, East Legal, and more who we always love to see. But it was also nice to see some new faces, such as, for example, Victoria State Board Association, which is something interesting. And of course, any of the successful candidates are always encouraged to come back and see existence with application writing for council. And I'd just like to thank officers for the report, as well as the grant panel, being Niall, Lee, Michelle from council, and thank you.
Thank you. Any speakers against? Any other speakers? Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's very pleasing to see in this report that there was an increase in applications, which shows that council were successful in branching out and communicating with the community about their grants that they have on offer and reaching out to new groups who may not necessarily have had the process or the ways to communicate with council previously. So I think that's a huge achievement to have 5 new groups and also to have a substantial increase in the amount of applications. I do note that the neighbourhood houses in Manningham have applied for permits for partnership grants, and not all of their allocation was granted. And even though that is disappointing in the sense that our neighbourhood houses provide so much to our community and the programs that they have to offer, I do hope that there's other ways that we can support our neighbourhood houses and maybe even increase, looking at how Manningham Learns can support our neighbourhood houses as well. Thank you.
Thank you. In closing, anything further to add, Councillor Conlon? Oh, sorry. Apologies, Councillor Stephen May.
Thanks. I'd like to agree with all the comments by the previous speakers. But just add my voice to what Councillor Lang just said about the neighbourhood houses. Post-COVID, my personal view was that it'd be nice to have a no-losers approach to this. But we have cut the application for all of the neighbourhood houses that have applied for grant funding, and we have been grant funding these organisations for a very long time. So normally you need a fairly strong case to take something away in government or long-standing arrangements. And I understand that things transition and nothing's forever and those sorts of sentiments, but post-COVID, my personal view was that maintenance of those important partnerships with our community houses would have been good to do. I appreciate that we were oversubscribed, and I appreciate that the officers have bravely come forward with a proposed increase in the budget. We're in a very, very strong financial position, and I think we have a bit of a history of being quite conservative when it comes to spending. I personally would have been up for seeing an increase, a greater increase in the budget of 600,000. Contemplated the possibility of moving an amendment tonight, but felt that given that we've been through a very detailed policy process and the officers and the things and to get back, and come up with these recommendations that it would be core governments to then reach in and start micromanaging specific grant applications. So I will be supporting the resolution as proposed by the officers, but I am a little bit concerned and disappointed that we have cut all of our neighbourhood houses. But that's the officer recommendation in light of the strong competition for limited funds. And maybe when we get to these sorts of decisions in the future, we could take a slightly bigger helicopter view, look at the cash balance and the balance sheet, look at our position relative to a lot of councils in Victoria, and maybe be a bit more accommodating.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen May. Any other speakers? Councillor Energy.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to make a comment about the applications. And we have received a large number of applications regarding improved social emotional outcomes and the increased connections and about the sense of community and increased active living. But unfortunately, climate change adaptation, we received no application at all. So council is very serious about climate change, and council adopted climate change emergency declaration, made an emergency declaration back in January 2020. So perhaps that is people just come out of COVID and have no opportunity to address the grant application. And I actually encourage our community groups to actually consider any good progress about climate change adaptation. So hopefully the following year or the 4 years later, we can actually see a lot of applications about climate change emergency and a lot of lovely progress to address climate change issues. So that's all I can say. And also reconciliation is another matter that we actually need to actively encourage all our community groups to address that issue. If you apply, you have the chance. If you don't apply, you have no chance at all. So I actually encourage people, do not afraid, just to apply, and then you will get a result from council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chair. Any other speakers? Councillor Collins, did you want to close?
Yeah, just like to just also add, it's great to see our policy help those smaller organisations actually apply for a 4-year grant for less than, I think it was $20,000 previously, which made it really awkward and really hard for those organisations to sort of justify. So it's great to see a number of smaller organisations in there and getting that 4-year certainty about their funding. And so I do again congratulate the officers in terms of the formulation of the policy originally that brought us to this point. So
Thank you. I'll put that to a vote. Those in favour? Unanimously carried. Thank you. Item 11, City Services, 11.1, Waste Collection Contract and receipt of recyclable contract intent to exercise contract extension options. Councillor Lang.
That the recommendation be adopted, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. A seconder?
I second the motion.
Councillor Lightweight. Councillor Lang.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought I would just explain, as the officers did I'd like to thank them for their comprehensive report. Sometimes the ins and outs of contracts and how they can align can be difficult to understand, but I commend our officers for putting together a report that was a really good summary. And just to let everybody know that our waste collection contract and receipt for recyclables contract. So the contract for solo resource recovery includes the collection of our curbside general waste, recyclable material, garden waste, and the transportation to disposal and processing facilities. And the contract for Busy for the receipt of recycling includes receivable sorting and processing of recyclable material collected across the City of Manningham. There's no doubt that our waste is an essential service, and the collection of our waste, it's a major component of what our local council provide, and the major component of these two contracts are the major components of our curbside waste and collection as well as transportation and processing. This report provides an update on the status of these contracts, as well as the recommendation to extend them and to have the exercise for the extension so that they align. And I thank officers for the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Lightbody?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Thank you. Any speakers against the motion? Any other speakers? Councillor Stephen May?
Yeah, I'm really pleased to speak in favour of this motion. It's always reassuring when a long-term contract gets extended for a long period, which tells you that the councillors and officers involved in the original tender made a good decision and they're happy in the performance of the duty. I have to say, when the decision was made, I had a very different hat, because I was actually the chair of the Finance and Governance Committee at the City of Melbourne at the time, and the City of Melbourne's 100% owned Citywide was the main waste contractor for Manningham at that time. So as a former Manningham councillor and Manningham resident serving in the City of Melbourne, I had mixed feelings about our subsidiary being sacked and outbid, and the council offering a substantial saving in the waste charge based on a more cost-effective service. And I said to myself, well, that'll be interesting to see whether they can continue to provide a good service, having bid less than Citywide, one of the largest providers across the country. And 6 years later, congratulations to Solo Resource Recovery for providing excellent service and the Busy, and they fully deserve the 6-year extension in my view. see why it needs to clean up their act and become more efficient and effective. The City of Manningham ratepayers have got very good value from that excellent decision 6 years ago, and I'm very happy to support a further 6-year extension tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen Lane. Okay, any other speakers? I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? Unanimously carried. Item 11.2, tree amenity value policy. I have a mover.
Madam Mayor, I move
Councillor
that,
Lane.
thank you. I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. And do I have a seconder?
I'd like to second that motion.
Councillor Lightbody, Councillor Lang.
It might be obvious that I'm a bit excited about this one. So, I would really like to acknowledge and commend Manningham City Council for having a tree amenity value policy. This means that Manningham Trees amenity value will demonstrate that Manningham is committed to the health and wellbeing of our community through the retention of trees as a valuable and as an important asset within our landscape. This report recommends that Manningham Council develops and adopts a tree amenity evaluation policy. This establishes the value of individual trees and the urban forest to provide the mechanisms to protect against the loss of tree canopy within Manningham. The tree amenity value considers the function of our environment and also its value to our community for many reasons, for health, for social, for ecological, environmental, for functional, and for aesthetic. Where tree loss is unavoidable, it will allow Manningham to receive a financial compensation for the loss of trees through either development, illegal removals, or other processes. And I encourage my fellow councillors to value our trees as much as Manningham City Council does. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Lightbody.
I don't have much to add to that, but I would like to also point out this is one of the first steps in the process of developing an urban forest strategy at Manningham, which will address the rising issue of the urban tree canopy degradation, which isn't just an issue in Manningham, it's an issue across all urban areas in Melbourne and in other centres around Victoria. And it also will help to address the associated increase in the urban heat island effect as we begin to see more effects from climate change grow and as we see more development through our community. So I'm very happy that we are tonight endorsing this policy.
Thank you, Councillor Lightbody. Any speakers against? Any other speakers? I'll go Councillor Chen and then Councillor Stephen Lane. Councillor Chen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor rightly mentioned about this is the first step to address urban forest strategy. And I'm very mindful that our urban forest is made up of native, exotic trees, shrubs, grasslands, and other vegetation growing on public and private land across all areas of Manningham, and the soil and water that supports them. This includes vegetation in parks, reserves, private gardens, along railways, waterways, main roads, local streets, and on other green infrastructures such as green walls and roofs. This tree amenity value policy only applies to public trees. And I believe that local governments have an important role to play in encouraging and regulation, the retention and increase of trees and canopy cover in private area. Council is currently developing the urban forest strategy that encourage monitoring and performance, and I expect that those trees in private areas can be considered and addressed in a not too distant future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chin. Councillor Stephen Main.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm also very excited by this policy. We have been losing 2 or 3% of our county cover per year, mainly because of development. And this policy will, I think, cause developers to think twice, maybe provide some of the designs of a plan, and where there is an water loss of trees, it would be a higher compensation payment to council. So we made SAC City of Melbourne as our waste contractor in 2016, but we're opening this report following the City of Melbourne model, which is the sort of basic monetary value of a tree model that was originally developed in 1990 by Dr. Peter Yor for the City of Melbourne a long time ago, 31 years ago, and has been successful and has been followed by many other councils such as Manuel, Wollongong, Indigo, Yarra, little adds to the report notes. So when introducing a policy innovation, it's always good to blaze a trail where there's legal certainty, and there were some legal issues that were raised when we first looked at adopting this policy a few months ago, and taken away. We had a look at it and dotted every I, crossed every T, and we've gone with the City of Melbourne model, which I think is the majority position. I think it's a good position. And so for councillors who often talked about we need to diversify our revenue stream, it's not going to be that material diversification, but the City of Melbourne needs to value each tree an average of $3,000. Sits there on the balance sheet just like cash. And I think it's a good approach to take, to put a dollar value on our trees, and when you knock down one of our trees, you can give us that dollar value back. We can plant some more trees. So it's a good policy. I hope our local developers can learn to live with it. I know they won't love it, but they can learn to live with it, and we'll put the money to good use in trying to ameliorate that 2 to 3% loss of tree canopy that we've been suffering every year due to the nature of development in the City of Manningham.
Thank you, Councillor Stephen May. Councillor Lang, did you have anything further in closing?
Yeah, I would just like to sort of round off by just saying this policy also fits in with our council plan that we have endorsed, and it fits in with our resilient environment theme, and it looks at our goals of protecting and enhancing our environment and biodiversity. It looks at the goal of reducing our environmental impact and adapt to climate change, and it also looks at demonstrating leadership in sustainable and innovative environment practice, and how proud we should be to develop a policy that does all those things. Thank you.
That being said, I'll put that to a vote. Those in favour? Unanimously carried. Item 12, shared services. There are no shared services report. Item 13, Chief Executive Officer. 13.1, CEO Key Performance Indicators 2021-2022. I have a mover. Councillor Conlon.
I'd like to move the recommendation of the year.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Stephen May. Councillor Conlon.
Thank you. Well, this is, look at this document, you think, how can one man achieve all that? Well, thankfully, there's a whole organisation, and much of that organisation is represented here tonight, and no doubt they're aware of the long list of things that we expect of our CEO. But I think it is a really good document. It has been developed in collaboration with the CEO, and it basically outlines the behaviours, priorities and metrics around a number of competency areas, including strategic. Now, one of my favourites out of this is probably review our streetscape management and plan and magistrate plan, magistrate policy, so that we can have those considered by the 30th of June 2022. We have advocacy in there, milestones to be met. We move on to financial management, such as finalising our community infrastructure plan by 30th of June 2022, and implementation of our action plan followed. We're talking about driving innovation, which I love. I love those sort of words. Driving accountability is another really key thing that we're in terms of our expectations of the organisation through the CEO. And for example, we've got a line there that demonstrates accountability and seeks accountable conduct from the organisation. And I think that's a really important thing that they have appreciated of our the way this council has operated, and that we, even though we do strive for that, there's still a reminder there on trying to that area. So, and probably, as we get down, there's values driven in terms of an area, competency area, and for example, there's a focus on improving our consultation engagement, our community engagement, training for officers, etc. So there's a lot of big things and little things backing it up, and I do think that it's a well thought out document. I think it's something we worked on together, and so I wholeheartedly endorse this to my fellow councillors for adoption.
Thank you, and bless you. Councillor Stephen May.
Thank you. Good day, Councillor Coleman. I just have to highlight the transparency in this process. I think this is my 10th year of being a councillor, and I certainly don't remember doing this very often over the years, where not only do we disclose the CEO's full contract terms and length dollar value in the annual report, unlike any other council in Victoria apart from the City of Melbourne, we also publish and vote on the separate key KPIs each year for the CEO. Now, there are some contracts where you can just say, deliver the plan, 4-year plan, we've passed it, your job is to deliver the plan. But this obviously is a more nuanced approach where within that plan, of course, deliver the plan is in the KPIs, but as Councillor Coleman outlined, that we've called out a number of issues that we particularly would like the CEO to focus upon in the coming 12-month period. And so I'm very interested in the deliver 90% of the capital works budget, for instance. The 58 million is a record figure. I think we're only up to 5 million after the first quarter. Very difficult with COVID and supply chain issues, etc. So it will be a stretch to spend 90% of 58 million by June 30 next year, but it's in the KPIs and we're all fully aware of it. I like the fact the community infrastructure plan, and we talk about that in detail, but I'm certainly looking forward to council doing something on the library front. I think it's good to have a very specific mention of food and organics waste collection service being introduced within the 22-23 financial year. And I do also like the streetscape management policy, and there's all the usual things about employee engagement surveys and the like. Now, not many councils have all 9 councillors on their CEO performance committee. That's a bit of a legacy of time gone by, but I think that it's worked well so far. At some point, we might be stripped down to councillors more interested in getting into the detail, but so far we've had all 9 of us on it. It's the only committee we've all 9 of us sit on, and I think we've done pretty well in producing a good document. We've got one of the best CEOs in the sector, in my view. I've not worked with another CEO who's been so popular and well respected by all of the councillors. Puts the time into the relationships with the councillors whilst being right across the detail. He took a punt on the CEO because it was his first year, and first year in a big metro council, you're always taking a punt, and I would argue it's a punt that's paid off, and I'm looking forward to seeing the CEO continue to do an excellent job delivering on these specific KPIs that the councillors have negotiated with him to be delivered over the coming 12-month period.
Well said, Councillor Stephen May. Any speakers against? Just checking. We're in a debate. And any other speakers? Councillor Lang.
I am definitely not speaking against. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just would like to point out again that not only is the CEO respected by the councillors, he's also very well respected by his staff. And to be able to work amicable in the 2 realms, I think is a very achievable, is a very difficult task, but it has been achievable. And I think that's because even in his KPIs, there are values driven. It is values that is the core of the principles that he has and the way that he manages his staff as well as works with us councillors. And so when it has here prioritises quality and efficiency rather than getting the job done, then that's what we see from our CEO, someone who is proud of the organisation and drives them for quality and efficiency, and his directors drive the same, and you can see that passion in them because of his leadership. We also have productivity to be equitable, diverse and inclusive, and you see that in the way that you feel when you approach him for a need, and also the way that he manages the organisation and us, or works with us, sorry, and how he embraces the notion of community is the heart of everything we do. It's the reason why we're here, and it's the reason why our CEO is here. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Lang. Other speakers? Anything further to say, Councillor Conlon? Okay, I'll put that to a vote then. All those in favour? Unanimously passed. Thank you. Item 13.2, informal meeting of councillors. Do I have a mover? Councillor Chen.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. Seconder, please.
The second motion.
Councillor Lang. Councillor Chen, anything to say?
Yes, I do have things to say. As we can see from the summaries of the informal meeting attached to this agenda, we have an excellent and perfect attendance rate. What can I say? So informal meeting is only a small portion of council's duty, and we have other roles to play, such as attending community events and also listening and engaging with our community, which is really important and took a lot of our council's time. And not to mention about telephone inquiry and responding emails and liaising with staff and the community members. So overall, I don't mean to boast, but this is an excellent attendance rate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Councillor Lang?
Nothing further to add. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any speakers against? Let's put that to a vote. Those in favour? Unanimously carried. Thank you. Item 13.3, documents for sealing. I have a mover.
I'd like to move officer's alternate motion.
Councillor Lightbody. Yes, would you like to read it?
I'd like to move that the recommendation be adopted with the addition of the following agreement: the deed of renewal and variation of lease, Council and Deep Creek Childcare Centre Incorporated, part 510 to 518 of Blackburn Road, Doncaster East.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Conlon. Anything to say? Councillor Bay, I'll put that to a vote. Those in favour? Unanimously carried. Item 14, urgent business. There be no matters of urgent business. Item 15, councillor reports and question time. Councillors, does anyone wish to provide a report or raise a question? You have 2 minutes and 2 questions only. Councillor Chen.
I'll be very quick. Before my question, I would like to congratulate all staff who took part in organizing the recent carols by candlelight. It was such a success that even attracted attendees from other municipalities, and also special thanks to city services staff. I have received a lot of positive feedback from local residents and parkgoers for the speedy cleanup after the event. So well done, staff. And my question is, in August 2021, Infrastructure Victoria presented Victoria's infrastructure strategy 2021 to 2051 to the government, including 94 recommendations around those 8 sections, such as transport, environment, and community. The government recently released its response to the recommendations. Some of the recommendations are supported by the government with implementation actions and investments underway. Can officers advise what measures Manningham City Council will take to take advantage of those supported recommendations for the benefit of our community? For example, recommendation 38 is to partner with local government to fund pedestrian infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the question, and I'll certainly hand over to the Director of City Services if he wishes to add anything. But obviously, the report, the government's response, I should say, is just fresh, as you say, Councillor. So we'll certainly be working our way through that report and then look at the key recommendations from Manningham's perspective and seeing what we can do in terms of taking advantage of the potential partnerships and flowing funding opportunities that might come from that as well in the form of grants and the like.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. And Mrs. Rachel Quadracci, City Services Director.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Chen, for your question. And further to our CEO, we welcome the opportunity to partner with the state government to work on and achieve the goals that have been included in the long-term plan of the state government. To expand our pedestrian network, promote people to walk more, and to provide connections to activity. This supports not only health and wellbeing and inclusion of our community, but also supports our healthy city strategy and strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillor? Report. Councillor Stephen May.
Thanks, Mayor. I was inspired by Councillor Lang at the previous meeting, waxing lyrical on about previous veterans. And I'd just like to report that 6 years ago, Women Temple Show Cricket Club entered their first veterans team in many years in E grade and had over 40s E grade and had 9 stragglers turn up for the first game where they got lost. About 6 years later, on Sunday, they played their first game in A grade. Although I will have to admit that the competition has been ravaged by COVID and there's now only 3 grades rather than 5. So we are down to 18 teams in the vets. But Sunday afternoon was a dramatic 1-1 win over Mitcham with their number 11 caught on the boundary on the last ball. It could have been 6, they won, they were caught, so they lost by 1 run. So congratulations to all those who've worked hard to get the Women Temple Stowe veterans up and running and now into A grade. And also congratulations to the club for having their first ever women's senior team, which is also using the Tedajani Oval on every alternate Sunday to the vets, because the vets do need 14 days to recover from each game. But I'd just like to ask a question of the CEO. I was talking to the President of Ranger today, and he mentioned that please mention the pitch, he said, which is threadbare, and we've had 3 players trained ligaments slipping on the pitch this season. So I'm not calling for any special treatment, but I'm interested in understanding perhaps what is the investment program on synthetic wicket investment across the municipality. But this Tedajani main oval is getting very intensely used. There was a T20 game tonight, Friday night, Tuesday, Thursday training, now Saturday, Sunday. It is slow, and there have been some injuries. Obviously, you can't do anything mid-season, but the President did ask me to pass on a request to Council for some sort of insight into the likely investment program for resurfacing from a safety perspective.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Stephen May. Yeah, we'll certainly provide councillors with some information on the process for reviewing and upgrading pitches and services for council's information.
Thank you. Councillor Stephen May, were you one of the vets that played? Just checking. Just checking. Councillor Laura May, did you have a report? No, all good? All right, any other councillors? Fabulous. Item 16, confidential reports. There being no confidential reports, and before I close the meeting then for 2021, I'd like to thank first of all the staff at Manningham City Council who have continually worked not only in this last year but the last nearly 2 years in a COVID environment. On behalf of council, I appreciate all the work each and every department has done through your directors and right down to those that are just casual staff. To my fellow councillors, I wish you all a wonderful break, that you'll restore, renew yourselves, be fresh for 2022, and a huge thanks to our CEO who in the previous item had such great commendation, of which I totally second and third. And I'm sure we're, as seen, you've done a great job in a very difficult time, and that should be acknowledged in this break. Have a good break, and for all of Manningham, be kind to yourselves. But you've got to be kind to yourself first before you can be kind to others. And I look forward to everyone in 2022 with us all sitting here. Thank you. Meeting closed.